Hello there, this is Cindy at cindydesigns.com. Thank you for joining me today. This is the card that we will be making. It's going to be my personal Christmas card this year that I have to mass produce because I'm really behind. So that is my sample. We're going to make 10 today. You're not going to see all of it, but we're just going to go over how to throw this together. I've been working with the Heartwarming Hugs suite all week long, and those sentiments are from the Wrapped in Christmas. I did the envelope. There's already a stamp on there. And we have a bunch of other materials and products that we're going to use. Not a bunch, but enough. Those are the warm wraps dies that are carrying over. So you want to keep those if you have them. And so are the cups. If you don't have them, you want to get it before they sell out. So for our materials that we are going to need, I use two different kinds of designer series paper, and our card base is very vanilla, top folding, 4.5 across by 5 1/4 down. So all you do is cut a full sheet in half at 4 1/4, and there's the envelopes. Then we have some mint macaron cardstock that we're going to use for our greenery. And then we have Whisper White. I'm going to call that our image panel. That is cut to 4 by 5 1/4. Measurements, everything will be over on the blog at cindybdesigns.com. And I'll get back to you in a minute with that. That is from the Poinsettia Place designer series paper. The green is, and the gold print is from Wonder of the Seasons specialty designer series paper. And again, that is our stamp set that we are going to be using Wrapped in Christmas for our inside, outside, and envelope sentiment. For our greenery, we are using the large Forever Flourishing die cut. So since I am mass producing, we're going to use a couple different kinds of adhesives, and those are the rest of the products that we will need. I have our foam adhesive sheets, and they are about 9 1/4 inches long. I cut one sheet in half, a little bit, around like 4 1/8 or so, but it's even. And then we have mini glue dots that are out of a paper pumpkin leftover, our mini Stampin' Dimensionals. We have our multi-purpose liquid glue. That is Mossy Meadow and Just Jade. We are not going to use Mossy Meadow. I kind of forgot to, but it worked out. And that is Memento Tuxedo Black. And then we have some linen thread. I put that on some little spools that I have. And then, of course, I have my Doxy tape holder because we're going to do a cheat to hold our linen thread to the back of our image panel there. So now I'm taking our thick, very vanilla card bases. I already have them creased at 5 1/2, and I'm just scoring them on both sides. I'm going to be using very vanilla for a little while because our manufacturer who does the Whisper White, they went out of business because of COVID. So Stampin' Up hunted around for a while and found another vendor to do this for all of our white products, the white paper products, and it'll be called Basic White, and I will have a blog post on that now, while you can, stock up on any Whisper White products. Now I'm die cutting that image from mint macaron cardstock. I don't want to send what I've already die cut through because it just gets kind of messy. So this is super sped up. It's really easy to get out of the image there. I got about 4 to 5 per full sheet. Actually, you can do 6 if you line it up right. So we are just going through that and pulling everything out. And that is what we are looking like. So I'm pulling in the stamp apparatus to get started with all of our stamping because we're going back and forth in between the stamping and the die cutting. So that is our image panel that again is at 4 by 5 1/4. And right underneath the description of this blog post, there'll be a link directly to, or not blog post, but YouTube description. There'll be a link directly to the blog post corresponding with this, so you can see all the instructions, supply list, everything like that. So I'm lining up my little designer series paper strips there, making sure everything is, kind of laying it out a little bit. making sure my sentiment is straight. It looks good. I like it. And anytime I start to like marathon stamp or anything like this, I want to lay it down on a piece of scratch paper just to make sure that everything's not going to be all messed up. So all I'm doing now is using my Stamparatus, the grid lines on that, to line it up at the exact same spot every single time to get our sentiment done on the outside image panel. Next up, we're going to be doing the envelopes, and I just picked that little cute love stamp from Wrapped in Christmas and kind of use it as a seal on the back. Since I am mass producing these cards, it is my personal Christmas card. I want to keep my cards as flat as possible. Since they're going all over the US, I don't, and basically keep, one stamp on it. So that's why I didn't put any jewels or anything like that, because they are raised a little bit. But I'm using my dimension in my colors and in my designer series paper and the layers that I'm using of in between the print and the old olive and mixing it up that way. So I got that stamp cleaned up, and we are going to move to the inside of our card now, where I'm going to lay down the image again in just jade, and I pulled that sentiment from Wrapped in Christmas, which is where all three of our sentiments come from. So I'm taking that same piece of grid paper that I used for the outside sentiment and just making sure that everything looks good on the inside, because I do cut that down to the exact same size as the card just to make sure that it's lining up. It didn't go all the way down right that first time, but you know what? That kind of ombre look I've talked about before, and your ink pads are a little bit dry, it worked out, and I'm okay with it. This time I just, made sure I pressed down everywhere, since we're mass producing these cards, and it really does go by a lot faster than you think. So I've pulled back in our Mint Macaron die cuts and my glue dots, a full sheet left over from one of my paper pumpkin kits, and I want to put that glue dot up there at the very top of the stem right before it starts to branch out there, because that is where we are going to tie some thread, and I have no idea why this is going so slow. So I might have to stop and speed it up if it keeps up like this a little bit, well, a lot. And that is what we are looking like so far. So now I want to turn every single one of them over, because we have to put our mini Stampin' Dimensionals on the back. So it's really important where you put your Stampin' Dimensionals on this image, because we're going to use dimensionals to adhere it to the card base or the image panel and liquid adhesive. So I made that little arrow over on the left just to, it's my own little cheat, to remind me exactly which side I want to put our mini Stampin' Dimensionals on. So I'm cutting halfway up through at an angle, because we're putting like a half on each side. And I wanted to zoom in there, not each side, but each leaf, to zoom in there to let you know exactly where I'm putting it. So I have one right there over on the very far left. And that greenery, it's a nice piece, but this part, I want to say tedious, not really, but it's important to me just to keep that dimension and that texture there when I'm doing a really clean and simple card like this. And you want to make sure that you get it snipped all the way up to the top, because I didn't do that. So once I did that, I wasn't getting I wasn't getting the grief. So again, those dimensionals, top to left leaves, just like that. And you want to do that for all of them. So now I want to take our designer series paper and get that laid down. On one of them, you're going to see, like that one, where I put it down at 1.25 inches, which I don't want to do. I'm using my grid mat, and I'm going to measure how it really should be. Again, that's 1.25 inches. Don't want to do that, but I did fix it though, And right here, I'm moving it up to 1 inch. That is how far you want your green or whatever piece, your first piece of designer series paper, whatever you choose, you want to coming down 1 inch down from the image panel. So I did that. You can see what I'm doing to get it all lined up. And I'm going to do 2 of the image panels here. One's going to be with our liquid adhesive, because that will give you some wiggle room, just in case it gets on crooked. And then for our next card that we're going to make just like this, I'm going to go ahead and use snail. I think the snail works a lot faster than the liquid adhesive, but I just wanted to show you the options that you will have. And I just grabbed one of our large blocks, set that aside up to dry, and now I'm going to be using our snail and just put a little bit down the middle there and a little bit on each side and get that down. And this is where I really mess up. I accidentally put it at 1.25 inches down rather than an inch. And when you see me lay down that print, I just put this seal on. It's like, oh no, this is not going to work out. So I just moved it up a teeny tiny bit, cheated, and it worked out perfectly, and you really can't even tell. Just make sure that you keep your print right side up. So when you're cutting your designer series paper and everything like that, I went through and cut all the paper at one time, all the card bases at one time, did the twine around it at one time, the adhesive on the back at one time, you know, everything in phases like that. So I put a little bit of seal on the back of our image panel, right where the top of the green designer series paper meets the Whisper White, wrapped it around twice, and now I'm bringing in my little sheet of just regular Scotch tape, putting it over where the ends join, rather than using a bunch of adhesive or anything like that. So I'm bringing in our foam strips. And remember, those are cut to about 4 1/8 each. I used 4 on the back of this, but for the rest of them, I only ended up using 3, 1 on each side and 1 in the middle. It worked out perfectly. I don't have any sagging or anything like that. And I find the foam adhesive strips a lot easier to use to cover an entire back of an image panel that is this large, rather than putting a bunch of dimensionals on the back. You know, normally I probably do maybe 5 to 6, but again, this was just, easier for me. And that also helps, keep down that linen thread too at the same time. So that is how I did that. And then I'm going to adhere it to the top, but open it up, make sure that everything is still going straight. So I'm peeling the back of our foam adhesive strips off of the image panel there. And again, that is 4 by 5 1/4. I'm going to layer it on top of our thick Whisper White card base. And that is regular, very vanilla for that image panel there. So now I am bringing in our little greenery there. Just kind of looking, see how I want it to go. And doing it again, making sure. I'm going to end up pulling in my original card, I think. No, I'm not. And I want to put little blue dots over on the right that you see there, right up above that I'm pulling off. The adhesive backing to the dimensionals on the right, again, you see that right up at top. And the bunch of leaves below that, where the dimensionals are, that has glue on it, and then the 2 over to the left, as you saw me do, put little teeny tiny glue dots on there. So I am tying just a bow with a twine, and you're going to see me struggle and mess with this a lot because you know how I am with bows on screen. And I was trying to tie it off the roll, but thought, no, forget it. But I don't want that linen thread twisting and turning around, so it does help to put your finger in the loop a little bit. And I don't want my ears to be too big or anything like that. So we are getting into the home stretch. We have like a minute and a half left, and I'm going to start to slow down right about now. But just keep that bow as even as you can. You're going to see me pull off the back of our glue dot and then put the bow on top, and then we are done. That is how easy it is. There's a lot of busy work to it, a lot of hand work, but I think it just makes like a really cute, non-traditional Christmas card, and I love doing those kinds of things. So that is it. That is what we are looking like. I have more videos coming out for you. I think after this week, I'm just going to wing it and play until the beginning of the new year. If you need anything, give me a shout out. You can always text, email me, whatever you need to do. And please don't forget to hit like and subscribe. Leave me a comment. And I hope you have a great weekend. And again, thank you for joining me today. And I hope that you join me again next week. Also, don't forget to sign up for Paper Pumpkin. There's always a link over on my blog. And we have a Valentine's Day kit coming up that I think that you will love.